What is going on, everybody? This is TAETRO, and welcome back to the Ableton Live for Beginners series. It's crazy to think, but we are coming to the end of the run of this series. We are now on episode 9, and here's what I'd like to do. I want episode 9 and 10 to be a two-parter, and what we're going to do is take everything that we've already learned in this series and apply it to the process of making a track. So in today's episode, we will begin working on a track in Ableton Live's session view, and in part 10, which will come out in 1 month, or maybe it's already out by the time you're watching this, we'll take that track from session view to arrangement view to work out a fully constructed track. But again, this is episode 9, so if you haven't yet, go back and watch all the way from episode 1 and build up a strong foundation. This series is built very intentionally. I'm very intentional about my sequence and how I teach. So watching from episode 1, a link to the playlist will be down in the description below. Will really help you if what we're doing here seems to be a little too confusing. If the series has helped you, leave a like on this episode and comment down below some things that you've learned and what you'd like to see in future videos. And also, I want to thank DistroKid once again for sponsoring this series. For this process, for the next 2 episodes, I am only going to use Ableton Live devices, but I might pull a sample or 2 from external sources, and I might use devices that you don't have in your version of Ableton Live. I don't think this is super important, but if it's a big deal to you, Ableton does have a 90-day free trial of Ableton Live Suite. So if you want to follow along step by step with this tutorial, I do recommend you just get that trial. However, it's not really about the particular devices or even the particular style of music that we're making in this video. It's mostly about the process, and the individual devices and details are up to you because you're the artist. With that said, let's get started making some music. So one of the easiest techniques that we learned to make our own instrument sound is by using Ableton Live's simpler instrument. I'm going to click and drag that onto one of the blank MIDI tracks that we already have here. You remember it says drop sample here. You want to find a one-shot sample from an instrument. You can probably find some free ones out on the internet. I'm going to pull one from my own sample pack Haze. This is a guitar. The note is C. When we talked about sampler, we talked about how important it is to tune this sample to C by going to controls and using the transpose function. Since this sample already is C, I don't need to transpose it because on my MIDI keyboard, C will equal C. If, on the other hand, I grabbed this sample, which reads D, and I dropped it in, that is a different note, and I would have to transpose it down to C. Since it's on D, we have to go down 2 semitones, 1, 2, and it's playing an interval anyway, so we're just going to go back to the one that reads C. Bottom line there is, make sure you transpose your sample if need be. So my process is grab a sound that you like that inspires you, just start making some music. Now, before we record any ideas, of course, we are going to need to set our tempo. I like making lo-fi chill hop music. And that riff, da 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 dun. I'm going to find the pace of that, and I'm going to tap it out. About 4 taps on the tap tempo button. Give us that decimal point number. I'm just going to round it up. Let's go up to 70, actually. Then I'm going to turn my metronome on and press play here so that I can actually hear the metronome. Play along. Okay, I think that's fine for a bass loop here. I don't want to take too much time on the initial idea, right? Get your creativity out. You can always go back and edit things later. So let's go ahead and hit record on this empty session slot and record this idea. And try again. All right, I was pretty satisfied with that. The recording is still running though, so let's hit spacebar to stop that. As you can see, I'm using a MIDI keyboard today. And of course, we're going to be making music. I'm going to be playing musical ideas. So if you look at what I'm doing on the keyboard and you feel a little intimidated, I have the whole music theory for beginners series available to you. It's very accessible. It's here on this channel. I'll link that in the description as well. This is a 9-bar clip now. And if you remember in the first half, I was like, not really feeling that. That's that first half, those first 4 bars. But by bar 5, this phrase I really did like. And we are working in 4-bar sections here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and shrink this down to start at bar 5. One thing that will often happen when we're playing them is the start of our note. Our note will start just before the downbeat because we're not robots. We're not playing completely perfectly in time on the grid. For this first note, it's really important that you nudge it over and it lands directly on that space, or else we won't hear the note. So now if I click play on this, we have this musical idea recorded, but it is 1 bar too long. So let's go ahead and shrink that down. All right, quickly, I'm going to select all of these notes. And I'm gonna hit Command-Shift-U, which is gonna bring up our quantization settings. Now, I think actually I played this pretty in time. It's not so bad, but we could tighten up the rhythm a little bit. There are times where it's pushing and pulling. I actually don't think we need to do it that much here. Since we are playing at a faster rate though, I'm gonna switch this to 16th notes. And I'm gonna leave the amount at about, what do you think, 60%? Which means it's not going to tighten it to the grid so much. It's just going to tighten it a little bit. If we tighten it 100%, it will lock it down to those lines. So let's hit OK, or let's hit apply. Now our phrasing will be a little more rhythmically sound, which depending on your playing ability, you might really need quantization. I do recommend you practice your rhythm so you can get it closer to how you want it in the first place. But at a certain level, we actually don't want a ton of quantization in certain styles of music. Okay, we have this initial phrase down, which I'm very happy with. I'm going to go into the sound really quick, and I'm going to turn the release time up. So these notes are nice and long. It's funny because this sound has a lot of noise, so every time a note gets played, the noise is played. I might go ahead and just shave off some high frequencies on the filter that's built into Simpler. You can see that this is a low pass filter, meaning it's that curve, so that as I pull the frequency down, we can actually go into the controls page and see what's happening. It will start filtering out those high frequencies. Let's not do too much. Let's also add a little bit of reverb onto this sound. Just going to grab the stock reverb, drop it into the audio effects. I don't want this to be 55% wet. Let's bring that down. Let's bring the decay time up. Compare. Okay, I actually quite like that. And now that's just looping. That's an idea that we can continue to listen to and add on to, but I think it's a good time to add some drums. So we can go to the drum section. And I don't think I'll be able to find a specific gentle lo-fi kit in Ableton's selection here. I found this interesting kit, Subtle Electronics Kit. Let's drop this onto the other empty MIDI track. I kind of like how gentle and sort of small it sounds. Okay, and it's got a lot of good little subtle, gentle sounds in it. There's 2 ways we can record, of course. We can play it in. Or we can draw in the notes. I want to use a combination of 2 since we're doing a little demo here anyway. Same process for recording. Let's hit record on the session clip. Ready, go, hi-hat. All right, did you see that little quick mouse move? That's like something to speed up your workflow so the clip doesn't record extra time, but it does require two-hand coordination. Otherwise, you can do what we did before, let it just keep recording, stop it, and then crop in your recording. So I chose to record in this sound on pads here because I wanted to create this velocity pattern with accents, you know, those really hard hits and those soft hits. It creates this movement in the pattern. If I Control A and Control Shift U, remember that we're on 60% quantization. You don't necessarily need this. You can do it. I'm going to put it on just for these hi-hats, 60%. So now we've got this subtle hi-hat sound. Like I said, we can now go ahead and draw in some of our sounds. We can double click in any of these spaces. And I'm just going to do a simple snare pattern here. I'm going to put snares on the 2 and 4. I'm going to highlight these two. I'm going to hold options and I'm going to bring them to 2 and 4 on bar 2, to 2 and 4 on bar 3, and to 2 and 4 on bar 4. I do like the idea of every other having that clap sound. So let's do every other. Let's double click a clap note in there. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm just going to start to draw in some notes here. We use that little speaker icon. We can start from a particular bar line. That isn't one. Boom, boom. Boom, got. Boom, got. Good. So we have a kick pattern, we have a snare pattern, we have a hi-hat pattern. You'll notice that as we were drawing in those notes, that they're all going in at the same velocity. Look at all those highlighted blue velocity heads here. They're all the same. One thing I might do is take one of these kicks, especially if they're close together. I obviously want that downbeat to be accented, so I'm going to bring down the kick before it. Same here. I'm going to choose one that we want to be accented. Add some variation there. All right, I'm going to unsolo this track. I don't even know if I mentioned that I soloed that just to work on it, but play it back with the guitar. Now, compared to the guitar, this is sounding really clean. So I'm going to go ahead and use the macro knob here to cut some highs. You can do this to taste, of course. Okay, that's not sounding bad at all. Sorry for the interruption. I want to tell you all that I have a new track coming out called Escape. It'll be on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you can listen to music, and I got it there by using DistroKid, the sponsor for today's video. DistroKid is the best way to get your music to all the places that people are listening to music, and I've been using them to get my music up on Spotify, Apple Music, even TikTok since well before they ever sponsored this channel. What I like about DistroKid is that you can just pay one annual fee and upload as much music as you want. But they also have a lot of great features for their artists, which I've been telling you over the course of this series, and one I want to tell you about today is the DistroKid app. Now, when I'm making music, I'm checking the mix on my phone, I'm even making artwork on my phone, and once I'm ready to get it out to the world, I can use the DistroKid app directly on my phone to upload my track and fully submit it to all the stores. This is really convenient. In that moment when I'm feeling super stoked about how my mix sounds, I can upload it directly from my phone. The artwork is already here because I was making it on my phone anyway. I can select the stores I want it to go to. I can include all the artist info and select any add-ons I might need. I do choose the loudness maximizer just in case it doesn't match everything else, and sometimes I get a refund on that if my mixing and mastering was done well. You can also manage your music, check your bank, and check the stats of your music all from the DistroKid app. So this is just another reason why I love DistroKid. They offer a lot of features to their artists that aren't just around distribution. So if you want to release your music and get access to all these cool features, use the link in the description. You can get 7% off just by using that link, and you'll be supporting the channel. Thank you again to DistroKid for sponsoring this series. Pre-save escape, link in the description. All right, back to the video. Let's go ahead and add a bass line. We're out of MIDI tracks here though, right? But don't worry, you know how to add a MIDI track. I'm gonna search bass under instruments, and let's look under simpler, because I think most people have that. Just trying to find a very simple bass. You know what? Let's try this wonk bass and see how it sounds. I am going to drop this into this empty space here. It will not go onto these audio tracks, but you already knew that because you're a pro. I'm gonna bring my keyboard down to the bass octave. Now this is really low and in the sub range, so it might be kind of hard for you to hear if you're not wearing headphones. But let's go ahead and record this along. Really, all I'm gonna do is play the exact same note from our melody, because our melody is kind of playing a chord progression as well. Well, it is. It's arpeggiating through chords. And I'm gonna take these last notes and just make my bass line out of them. So we have F, I'm seeing the note name here, F, E, D, F again. And actually, if I can show you one trick, instead of playing them in, I will just copy this clip over, holding Options and dragging it over. Now, in this clip, obviously I don't want this bass playing this whole thing, I just want them playing the bottom notes. So I'm gonna select all these notes, press play on this clip. And as you can hear, oh, there's some extra notes there. It's playing way too high of an octave. So I can select all those notes again and hold Shift down arrow. We can go Shift down one more octave. Now we get that big, robust, sub-bassy sound. Now for my bass sounds, I like the notes to connect. I like them to be legato, meaning that they start and end like in perfect time with each other. But you'll notice there's a little gap there. Luckily, Ableton does have a legato button. If I push that button, and if you don't know what legato means, you'll see when I push this button exactly what it does. It extends the notes or shortens them so that they perfectly start and end and don't cross over each other and don't leave a gap. So now we have a bass line. Now we've got like some melodic harmonic stuff with the guitar playing chord / a melody. We've got drums, and we've got bass. Those are three pretty key elements here. Let's add one more instrument though, as sort of a counter melody or a melody on top. Let's go back into the simpler folder, exit out of my search for bass. Let's go to piano and keys. And I think I like the electric piano cheap sound. I'm going to drag that into that empty space again. And you know what? I'm not sure if we're going to use this audio tracks yet, so I'm just going to delete them. And now I can play our electric piano sound. If you're having any trouble, you'll notice as I'm adding these instruments in, I'll just add another version of that instrument. It's automatically arming these. Don't forget to arm your tracks. If you're confused, don't forget. But I will say this electric piano does not match. Doesn't fully match the vibe of our track that we have going here. And that's a big thing. So you notice we're kind of moving quickly here. And part of it is because we're doing a tutorial, but part of it is true to my actual process. I don't like to agonize over certain sounds or certain musical ideas at this stage of just starting from scratch. So with that said, it would be easy to say, oh, that electric piano is too clean, I'm just going to bounce off of it. Instead, I know I can make it work, and you do too, because you know what we have available to us in terms of audio effects and ways we can change the sound. So let's drop a reverb on here first and foremost. Everything is kind of floaty and has a bunch of reverb on it in this at the moment. Not a bunch of reverb, but it has some space. Let me turn up the decay time on the reverb. And the more I give the dry and wet, the more I kind of like this sound. I actually kind of liked what I just played, so I'm going to quickly hit the MIDI capture button. This is a huge feature in Ableton Live 11 that you should not forget about, where it will just, boom, recall what you just played via MIDI, not via audio, unfortunately. And you don't lose that musical idea. So we have it. I just don't like this note. And I want this to be a different note. But we could go and try to find the note on the keyboard, or just for demoing sake, I can press this headphone icon here, which will allow us to monitor notes. You can see as I'm selecting them, we're hearing them. It allows us to monitor the notes. So if I want to move this note, it will sound, and we don't have to go play it again. We can do it in real time. Okay, that is the note that I want. That's great. And we have 4 core elements here. This is an important part of the process too, which isn't so much directly related to Ableton as it is related to, it's a musical concept here, right? We have the guitar. It's kind of laying out our progression. We have our drums, which is laying out our rhythm. We know that. We have our bass, which is reinforcing that chord progression on the low end. And now we have another melody. It's important to pay attention to both the guitar and the keyboard. You'll notice they are doing a type of call and response thing. This is something I just did like innately, and that you will probably learn too as you're making music. If I select both of these clips, the guitar clip and the electric piano clip, we can see them together. So obviously green is the electric piano, orangey brown is the guitar. You'll notice that when the guitar plays notes, it's not directly competing with the electric piano because the electric piano comes in after the guitar plays its phrase. Listen to that again. Guitar first. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun. So they're kind of passing it back and forth. There is some overlap. It's not like a hard and fast rule that when this instrument's playing, the other one can't, but they do complement each other well. So it's not too busy. And this is how I begin a track. And at this stage, we are just working with these loops. We have to see the potential that these musical ideas could form a song. And let's start thinking about that. We're going to mostly get into that in part 10, episode 10 of this series. But for now, let's get ahead for ourselves. The first immediate thing I see that's possible is we can go ahead and duplicate, Command D, this drum clip. And why did we duplicate it? Because we can create a new version of it. And the easiest example of that is just deleting the kick. That's fine. Let's duplicate it one more time. Let's delete all the snare sounds. So now we have a hi-hat only version. And we can rename these so we are nice and organized. Command R. And I'm going to write hi-hat. This one is hi-hat and snare. Rename this one full because it's all the drums. And you know, I might actually arrange these differently like this. So they go from kind of small to big, you could say. And in fact, since we came up with this electric piano idea so easy, let's come up with one more simpler idea. 2, ready, go, 1. Okay, that's another electric piano idea. I did the thing where I let the recording keep going for a while. Let's just shrink it down to 4 bars. It's nice and even. Dun, dun. So now we have 2 different electric piano ideas. That's great. Let's duplicate the guitar. Now, this is all about creating variations of your musical ideas. I consider Ableton's session view, while it is a great performance tool, when I'm writing, I consider it like a notebook, a sketch pad, because we're not quite finishing a song. These are just forever looping ideas, and this is a valuable stage in the process. So we've created a duplicate of the guitar. And actually, you know what I've decided? Let's, instead of duplicating the clip, let's Command D and duplicate the track. And let's get rid of the clip in that. Let's arm this second track. And now we can have a sort of lead guitar sound. I'm gonna make one change here though in the simpler. I'm gonna warp it. Definitely sounds warped a bit, but it'll get us longer tones and more uniform length tones. And let's go back, let's hit play on our clip. And one other important thing I want to do here. Let's go to audio effects and EQ. I don't want these two instruments to interfere, and a top lead guitar like this doesn't need low end at all, in my opinion. I just made a big mistake that you might make and frustrate yourself with, where you're playing one track. We're playing track 2 right now, but we have track 1 selected. So I just took that EQ and dropped it thinking I was on track 2, but I was on track 1. So let's select track 2, put the EQ on here. Now this is EQ8. I know everybody doesn't have this. Here's how I would do it with my Ableton Live suite. Not too much there. And this is a little overbearing right here. That's fine. Now, if I wanted to just do that more simply with EQ3, I would drop EQ3 in and lower the gain of the lows and a little bit of the mids. And I might even give this sound a bit more reverb. In fact, we can change the input filter of the reverb. Make the reverb here a bit brighter. Let's play again. All right, that idea was fine. I think I'm gonna hit the MIDI capture button there, and you'll notice, actually, did it work? Oh, it worked fine. You'll always just wanna pay attention if you use MIDI capture that it captured the right part. Sometimes it can say, oh, we think you wanted to start over here, but no. I wanted this 4-bar clip, and it actually did a good job that time. And I actually think I have to reduce some highs because of all that noise on the sample. We'll just call it lo-fi. A couple mixing things real quick. First of all, I noticed when I hit play on this, my master is in the red. And I touched on this in the last episode, but in my projects, I'm gonna select all of these tracks by holding shift and selecting this title to the last title. And then I'm gonna bring down the volumes. I mentioned this in the last chapter, but I always have my tracks defaulting at -12. Because later we can add, later in the mastering process, which might not be a big thing for you right now, we'll end up adding gain, adding volume. And one other thing that is kind of particular to lo-fi and some other genres, but I am going to do some sidechain compression, which, if I go to dynamics and find the compressor, let's start by putting a compressor on the initial guitar part. We're not trying to compress the sound. We are instead trying to get a signal from the kick to duck the guitar sound. I'll show you what I mean. Let's open this up. A little hidden menu there. Go to sidechain, audio from. Let's find our drum kit, subtle electronics. Let's find the kick drum in this drum kit. Pre-FX is fine. So now what you'll see on the compressor is receiving a signal, right? It's particularly receiving a signal from the kick. If I bring the threshold down to where that drum is actually hitting, now I'm gonna unsolo the drums. You can probably hear a little pumping there. It'll every time the kick hits. I like the way this sounds. It's kind of a taste thing. A lot of different genres do it. You can put it before or after the reverb. That's a creative choice. But I'm now going to copy that sidechain compression and put it on everything. Except when I put it on the bass, I'm going to turn the dry wet down a bit to about 50%. So it's not too intense on the bass. Everything else, I'm happy to have that kick punching through. In general, I think the drums are a little too loud. And you can start to play along with these clips, cueing them in and out, stopping some, playing some others, and start to have an idea of where your song or your track is going to go. That is what we are going to be doing in episode 10 of this series, the final episode. We're going to take these musical ideas, we're going to transform them and arrange them, literally put them into arrangement view, into a full track. We're not necessarily done writing music yet, but we've set ourselves up for success here. And if you are at home making your own music, I do recommend this process of sit down, come up with some ideas, take a break, go ahead, and then make a song later. Don't try to do everything in one sitting if you're getting fatigued. And don't feel like every time you sit down, you have to make a finished song. If episode 10 is already out by the time you're seeing this, I've got a link to this full series playlist down in the description. You can check for that. It will come out probably 1 month after this episode comes out. Thank you again for watching this series. Get your final questions in the comments down below for our final episode. We could even potentially do a Q&A episode on episode, we could do a bonus episode or something. I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. Leave a like if this video did help you. And thank you again to DistroKid for sponsoring this video. That's going to be it for now. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been TAETRO. Have a good one. Stay tuned for